Hi, welcome to Fellowship this Mother's Day weekend. We're so glad you're here with us.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Hey, thank you. My name is Lisette Fraser. I'm one of the pastors here.
And my name is Matthias. I'm one of the pastor's kids here. And here at Fellowship, we are a gospel-centered, multi-ethnic, intergenerational church, and we exist to make disciples.
Yes, we do. And we say that every weekend because we think it's really important. That is who we are. And whether it's your first time joining us for a service or you've been with us many times, we are so glad to be with you.
Yeah.
And we want you to know, even though we're not in a building together, we are scattered at home together, but we are together.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of our Fellowship team down in the chat below, and they would love it if you went down and talked to them.
They would love that. So we invite you to join us this morning, join us in worship, join us in learning and growing and being together. We want you to sing at home, have fun at home. We have such a special service for you, and we will see you at the end of this service together.
Good morning, Fellowship family. Come on, let's clap those hands and give God our best praise. Sing with me. Your love is everlasting. Your love is everlasting. It's an everlasting love. Your mercy is as new as every rising of the sun. And your loving kindness is better than life. Sing with me. Your love is everlasting. Yeah. It's an everlasting love. Your mercy is as new as every rising of the sun. And your loving kindness is better than life. Lift your voice, sing with me. It's better. It's better. Sing on. Better than life. If you believe that, come on, sing it with us. Oh, it's better. Better than life. Sing it all. Say, Jesus. It's better than life. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made, and I will rejoice, yes I will rejoice, and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice, and be glad in it. Oh, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord. You can sing with me. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. That
pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you are breaking new ground. And so I yield to you and to your careful hands. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. So make me your vessel, make me your offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Oh Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Sing in the crushing, and in the pressing, you are making new wine. So now I surrender all. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. You're doing a new thing. You are breaking new ground. So make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me. I give you everything, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. 'Cause where there is new wine, there is new power, and there is new freedom. The kingdom is here. I lay down my old plans to carry your new life today. Oh, 'cause where there is new wine, there's new power in Jesus, and we're all set free. The kingdom is here, so I lay down my old plans to carry your new fire today. So make me your vessel,
Make me choose.
make me your offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Oh Jesus, bring new wine out of me.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I
need thee. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes, when it comes my way, and when I cannot stand, oh Father, I'll fall on you, because Jesus, you're my hope and stay.
The older I get, the more I see the woman in my mother. The 20 years old crush on my father before he was my father's woman, and it's funny how sometimes we forget of the hero and the human, the story before the superpower, the woman before the mother, the woman and the mother. This is an open letter to all of you. Dear woman, we see you. Even when it feels as though mom has been said more times in a day than you can count, and you are trying to extend hands that have been empty for so long and extend patience that has been thin for so long. Dear woman, afraid of being hidden under piles of laundry and stampeding children, afraid that she is buried by the demands of everyone around you, carrying worlds on your shoulders and still managing to stand taller than ever. Dear woman, wondering where the sound of her own voice has disappeared to. Dear woman, holding newborn baby, afraid and awe, and then afraid again, terrified that she's been given all the wrong ways to love, assumes that she could never do it right. A woman who knows more tired than rest, more chaos of a home than peace. Dear woman, you are wonder and warrior, you are lighthouse, rescue ship, and also the waves raging in between. You are seen. You are known. You are not forgotten, dear woman, who so desperately want to be mothers who have wept at their bodies' disloyal attempts of creating new life. Dear woman, who cringes every time she is called that, because how could barren wombs still be considered woman? Enough, you are woman. Enough, you are simply enough for the mothers who are mothers through a care system who will never understand what family means. You have taken the unlikely bunch and love them still. Dear woman, who is made familiar with the inside of abortion clinics, who has felt life be uprooted from her lungs and her womb. Dear woman, you are seen. You are known. You are not forgotten. To the woman who is inhaling and exhaling life on this earth when her child no longer does. Sometimes control is not always in your fix-it hands. This is not your fault. This was not your fault. To the women who are buried down by depression, all barren eyes and heavy hearts, there is still sunshine coursing through your veins. When you are ready, please get back up. Please get back up, dear woman. to the yes woman and the no woman, to the I am still standing even in the eye of the storm woman, to the I can be super without the cape woman, to the mothers and the almost mothers, to the one day mothers. You are seen, you are known, you are not forgotten, you are wonder and warrior. You are a lighthouse, rescue ship, and also the waves raging in between. You are seen, you are known. You are not forgotten.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you. Thanks for being my #1 fan always. And we'll see each other soon.
I appreciate my mom so much for always wanting to people watch with me, telling me all the crazy stories, and always teaching us to love people well.
And I'm grateful to my mom for keeping my whole family sane, holding down the fort every day, and cooking delicious meals all the time.
We love you, moms.
We love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. We love you because you provide for us. We love you because you make us meals. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
This Mother's Day, I want to give a special shout out to my wife, Renee. As a nurse at City of Hope, you journey with your patients through some of the most difficult seasons of their life, showing them grace, kindness, and compassion. And if that wasn't enough, you come home and you take care of me, our daughter. I love you, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you for journeying 7,290 miles across the Pacific Ocean, all for the better opportunity to raise your kids. Thank you for sacrificing back then so I can live and grow up to be that hope-filled, compassionate, second-generation Filipino-American that chooses to pursue that same redemptive God every day.
Happy Mother's Day. We love your delicious cooking, the creative and fun ways you pull pranks on us,
the way you make everything around you brighter and better just by being you.
We love you. I love my mom because she's super helpful with the family. She's super caring and she loves to go on adventures with me and they're super fun. I love her because she always swims with me and help me make s'mores with me. I love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. You're the best mom in the world.
I love you because you make me laugh so hard.
And I love you because you make my heart smile.
Mamacita, happy Mother's Day. You've ushered me through manhood alone, and you've definitely shaped the man that I am today. You've taught me to love God, live a life of integrity, and to do the right thing. Happy Mother's Day.
Rachel, my wife, my love, happy Mother's Day. I wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude for all that you do for our family. Our kids are so blessed to have a mother who's so gracious, who's so kind, and who's so generous. If the quarantine has taught me nothing else, is that your job is extremely difficult. So today I just wanted to take a moment to honor you, to celebrate you, to say thank you. Happy Mother's Day.
Hi, Mom, and Mom-in-law Celia. We celebrate you today. You have continually shown us that sacrificial love that puts your family before yourselves, and you've generated a legacy of nurturing that will affect generation after generation. We say we love you and happy Mother's Day.
Hey, Fellowship family, and happy Mother's Day. Listen, we want to celebrate all the moms, give you all the love because you deserve it. My baby mama, I'm so thankful for my baby mamas. You are such a blessing and a gift to our family. As you think about today, babe, what are you thankful for as a mother?
I think I'm most grateful to be a mom. I'm grateful for the privilege of our 4 beautiful kids, Zoe, Bethany, Micah, and Isaac.
You remembered all of them. Great. That's better than what I do.
Order, but yeah, I'm just grateful for the privilege to be able to love and be loved by God's precious blessings. And that sounds cliche-ish, but it really is a blessing. So
that's beautiful. Well, we are so thankful for you and so thankful for all of you, to all the moms. Now, let's be honest. Mother's Day is a complicated holiday. Like many other holidays, for some of us, it brings up memories that we enjoy and some memories that aren't that enjoyable. Some of us, it's a time of mourning, of loss and grief, of loss of relationships, loss of loved ones. So wherever you are on the spectrum of mourning in having joy and hope on a day like today, can I just encourage you, be where you are. Just be where you are. And just, here's the thing, don't be there by yourself. Invite God into that space. In many ways, even if you haven't had children or don't haven't adopted children or aren't guardians of children, in many ways, I think Mother's Day is a celebration of womanhood, because every woman has spoken into another woman's life, a little girl, or a little girl is looking up to you and watching you, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a niece, or so I want you to feel celebrated and seen today, because it's a celebration of womanhood and the impact that you've had on all of us, and it's shaped us. And it's been so necessary and so good. So we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. Yo, listen. When I thought about Mother's Day, one person came to mind. Baby, tell us who that is.
That is Dr. Kara Powell.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. She has been so influential. Her wisdom, her research has been so influential, not only in our home, but in our church, in Fellowship Church. So we're so delighted that she's with us this morning.
Every time I'm with Kara, I feel smarter and I feel inspired when I walk away. So today, I hope you feel smarter. I hope you feel inspired. Give a fellowship welcome to Dr. Kara Powell. Come on, Kara, do your thing.
Happy Mother's Day weekend, Fellowship family. It is great to be with you and to be studying God's Word together today. My name is Kara Powell, and I live here in Pasadena. I'm part of Lake Avenue Church, and there are so many connections between Lake Avenue and Fellowship that being part of your worship service just feels really natural. I also get to interact with a lot of the amazing leaders on the Fellowship pastoral team through the work that I do at the Fuller Youth Institute. We love studying innovative churches and particularly thoughtful leaders, and you all are an innovative church with a lot of thoughtful leaders. And so we're often turning to you to learn with you and from you, and it's just a joy and an honor to be together today. So let's talk about Mother's Day. I'm a mom. Dave and I have 3 kids. Nathan is 19, Krista is 17, and Jessica is almost 14. We have a college student, a high school student, and a middle school student, which means, let me just say, during this pandemic, we are going through a lot of dishes. Having 3 teenagers at home, I feel like we are constantly running the dishwasher and emptying it, and we're barely having enough wireless for when all 5 of us are online. But whether it's the pandemic or not, I just love being a mom. My kids bring me so much joy, so much hope, so many of my favorite memories. So many of the times that I laugh the hardest are when I'm with my kids. And yet, I'm going to be honest with you. Being a mom brings me so much joy, and yet it's also the area where I feel the most insecure. There's no other area of my life that brings out my fears and my feelings of inadequacy like being a mom. And it's not related to how my kids are doing. My kids are amazing. They love God. They love others. We're actually having a really great time during this quarantine together in our house, grieving over what's happening outside of our house, but inside of our house, it's really sweet and awesome. My husband's teaching our kids how to drywall our basement. So, that's the kind of fun we're having in the Powell family. Actually, we laugh a lot when we drywall. We laugh more when we drywall than when we're playing games or watching movies together. But it has nothing to do with who my kids are. It has to do with who I am and how I'm feeling about myself. And that came into very clear focus last summer. We went on a family vacation, as is our habit in the summer. And since Nathan, our now college freshman, was graduating from high school, we said he could choose where he wanted us to go. We saved money for a while. Nathan, it's your choice. So he was interested in either France or Italy, which would have been a really big expense, obviously. And Italy's plane fares were quite a bit more expensive. So needless to say, our kids have never been to Italy. We chose France, which was just phenomenal. And it was really the trip of a lifetime in so many ways. And there was one day when we were in Paris that we were going to take a day trip to Versailles. And for a variety of reasons, we needed to get into 2 Ubers. So my husband had 2 of our kids, and I had our 17-year-old, then 16-year-old Krista in the car with me. It was going to be like a 45-minute ride to Versailles. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I was fresh. The day was fresh. It was sunny. It was beautiful Paris. I thought, this is going to be such a great opportunity to connect with my daughter, to hear how she's doing, to hear what the highlights of the trips are so far, to hear how she likes the art and the food in France, and just to have this special one-on-one time. That's what was in my head. Krista, who's given me permission to share the story, Krista had something different in her mind. It was 8 a.m. in Paris, which meant it was 11 o'clock at night back here in California. And it was summer, and so she had a lot of friends who were up and still on their phones at 11 o'clock at night. So this was one of those rare times where she could be on her phone and her friends could be on their phone and they could communicate in live time despite being, in different continents. And so all she wanted to do as we're driving in this Uber, the two of us in the back seat together with the Parisian driver, all she wanted to do was be on her phone. I tried to start a conversation with her and it was clear it was going nowhere. What Krista wanted to do was totally understandable. Had I been more rational, I would have actually been really supportive of what she wanted to do, connect with her friends. But all I heard for that Uber ride to Versailles is, I'm a bad mom and my kids don't want to be with me. Here we had spent this money, devoted this time. I even study families and family relationships and family faith formation in my job. All I could think was, I'm a bad mom and my kids don't want to be with me. We got to Versailles. Dave and our other two kids were there. We went through security. We started touring beautiful Versailles. I'm hearing all this French around me, but internally, all I hear is, I'm a bad mom and my kids don't want to be with me. It got to the point, I was so disconnected and so shrunken in on myself that I just thought, I need to go. And so I said to Dave and the kids, I'm really tired, which was true. Dave knew what was going on. I had pulled him aside, but I said to the kids, I'm really tired. And so I think I'm just going to go back to this apartment that we've rented. So I go to the front driveway in front of Versailles and my Uber app wasn't working. So I had to wait for a taxi. And before that taxi pulled up, as I'm waiting for a taxi, I'm just saying over and over again in my mind, man, I'm a bad mom and my kids don't want to be with me. But then, the Lord did something. And I had kind of a breakthrough. And I thought, you know what? I need to pray differently. While I'm waiting for this taxi, I need to pray differently. And so I prayed these 3 sentences. Because I feel, and I finished that by saying, like I'm a bad mom. Because I feel like I'm a bad mom. I want to retreat from my family. But because you, Jesus, make me enough, I can receive strength and be the mom that I want to be today. I prayed that over and over again. Because I feel like I'm a bad mom, I want to retreat from my family. But because you, Jesus, make me enough, I can receive strength and be the mom I want to be today. A cab pulls up. I had a chance to get in that cab. It was like 6 feet away. It even opened the door for me. 6 feet away. I could have gotten in the cab and left my family and gone back to that apartment and just kind of crumbled in insecurity as a mom. But instead, I just prayed over and over again that prayer. Jesus, you are enough, so I can receive strength and be the mom that I want to be. And I thought, I don't need to get in that cab. So I stood up, I walked back into Versailles, I found my family, and I said, you know what, guys, I was struggling. And the kids were not surprised. They could tell anyway. And I said, but God help me. I'm feeling good. Let's finish Versailles. That was really a turning point for me as a mom. That day outside of Paris was a turning point in me having more of a sense that I'm enough. That because Jesus is enough, I am enough. Now, I still struggle with that quite a bit. In fact, just this past weekend, I had a really bad headache. I was in my room, like in the dark from noon on, and it was a Saturday. And Saturdays, typically when we do family game night or movie night, often when we drywall, And I had this headache, and my family was out in the rest of the house. I was sequestered in my own room, and I was struggling, feeling like a bad mom, feeling like I'm not enough. So I still deal with it every once in a while, but Jesus has helped me so much. And I want to think with you, what area is it in your life where you don't feel like you're enough? Where is it that you feel inadequate? Feel like you don't measure up? Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's as a friend. Maybe it's because you're single. Maybe it's because you work. Maybe it's because you're not working these days and that makes you feel like you're not enough. Maybe you don't feel like you're enough of a Jesus follower. What area, where is it that you don't feel like enough? And I think on this Mother's Day weekend, we need to be honest that often it's because the wounds of our parents, the wounds of our moms, our stepmoms, our dads, our stepdads, our grandparents, our guardians, the people who have raised us. It's often because they are imperfect people dealing with their own brokenness that they have not loved us well. And so sometimes part of why we don't feel enough is because the way we were loved by our own parents. And in this particular season, in the midst of the pandemic, some of us don't have enough. Some of us don't feel like we have enough money, food, time, security. Like me, you're seeing the long lines of people waiting just for basic necessities like toilet paper. It's easy to feel like we don't have enough. I want to look with you today at John 6, verses 1 through 15. Because it's a powerful story that reminds me and can remind you that Jesus is enough and has made you enough. It's the feeding of the 5,000, or rather it's 5,000 men who were there. So it's probably more like 10 or 15,000 total. And let's go ahead and read again from John 6, verses 1 through 15. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him. Jesus is a little crafty there. He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take almost a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who has come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. Thanks be to God. This is the only miracle that Jesus performs that is in all 4 Gospels, other than, of course, the resurrection, which is also in all 4 Gospels and a really important miracle. But this is the only miracle that is in all 4 Gospels, which maybe says something about its significance. There's a large crowd following Jesus. And so interestingly, Jesus, he goes up onto a mountainside just to get a little time away with his disciples. He retreats up the mountain. Now, the crowd had been following him because they had been so impressed with how Jesus was healing people. And this is where, when Jesus is surrounded by a crowd, the healer becomes a host. The healer, Jesus the healer, becomes Jesus the host. They were in the northeast shore of the Sea of Galilee near Bethsaida. And so Jesus says to Philip, who was from Bethsaida, where can we buy enough bread for these people to eat? Now, Philip, seems to be a pragmatist and seems to be pretty good at math, because he looks at this large crowd and says, in verse 7, it would take almost a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. I want you to remember that. Each one to have a bite. Then Andrew enters, and he's maybe a little less clueless than Philip, because he brings some resources. He brings a young person. Note that we've thought of this person as a young boy, but we actually don't really know that from the text because of the word that's used in Greek. It is a masculine word, but it's also used to describe female young people. So we actually don't know the gender of this young person. But Andrew brings the young person forward and says, here's a boy with 5 loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go? Now, I think there's a possibility that Andrew is actually asking that question sarcastically. Like, yeah, here's a child, and we've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. But really, what good is that going to do, Jesus? Now, in the midst of studying this passage, I've come to understand a little bit more about those loaves and fish. The loaves were barley loaves. That was the bread of the cheap, the bread for the poor. So low quality bread, probably really thin, not substantive. I eat gluten-free, and let me just say, gluten-free bread, kind of thin. This is probably what barley loaves were like. And then the fish, they were probably very small also, maybe like sardines. But Jesus takes that and he has everybody sit down all over the grass, gives thanks as he would have been the custom to do, and distributes to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish. And again, because it was about 5,000 men, we think it was probably at least 10, probably closer to 15,000 people. Jesus fed them not a bite, not a smidge, not a morsel, not a small snack. He feeds them a full meal. Now, as we think about what it means to know that Jesus makes us enough, I want us to look at 4 points about being enough that come from this passage. 4 points that anchor us when we're struggling with being enough, whether it's Mother's Day, whether or not we're moms, whatever it might be happening, what it is that makes us feel like we're not enough. Here's the first point. Jesus makes what we have and who we are enough. Jesus, not our own efforts, not our own skills, not our own creativity, not our great social media abilities. It's Jesus, number 1, Jesus, who makes what we have and who we are enough. In fact, so much so that when Jesus asked the disciples to pick up the remainders, which would have been custom in his time, to pick up what was left over, they pick up 12 basketfuls. Each disciple had his own basketful. What was 5 loaves and 2 fish? I mean, just do this math. What was 5 loaves and 2 fish becomes 12 baskets. Why? Because Jesus makes what we have and who we are enough. Now, as I've thought about you all, I think there's kind of a continuum in how we experience this, and especially in a season like this pandemic. There are some of us on one end of the continuum who we, by and large, know that we have enough. We feel like we're enough. We live in the land of enough most of the time. Then there are those in the middle, those who are in the middle, who sometimes feel like they have and are enough, but sometimes don't. It kind of varies by day, varies by week, varies by paycheck, varies by relationship or dating relationship. And then there's a third kind. In addition to those who know they're enough and are maybe enough some of the time, there's a third type of person. And that type of person knows that they're not enough, especially maybe in this season. You definitely don't feel like you have enough or are enough. And I realize that. So in the midst of this truth of Jesus making what we have and who we are enough, we've got to be honest. What do we do? What do we do when we don't feel like we're enough? Sure, sometimes we live in the land of enough, but sometimes, some days, some hours, some weeks, some years, we're not sure whether we're enough or whether we're going to have enough, or we actually live in fear that we aren't enough and we don't have enough. What do we do then? Well, this is where the second point that we see in this passage is so important, because we can go to Jesus when we have or feel like we aren't enough. You and I, anybody we know, everybody we know, can go to Jesus when we feel like we are or like we don't have enough. This is what Andrew does. Andrew brings this young child with just a pittance of food to Jesus. That's what I had to do sitting out in front of Versailles, when honestly everything in me wanted to retreat on my own and kind of just collapse in a feeling of not being enough. And I had to pray this prayer, and I'm going to say it again because I want to offer it as something that has been game-changing for me when I struggle with not feeling enough. You might want to write some of these phrases down. You can come up with a better prayer, quite possibly, absolutely. There's nothing magical about this prayer, but there's something powerful about praying. And so it's 3 phrases. Because I feel like, for me that was, I'm a bad mom. Because I feel like I'm a bad mom, I want to, what is it that you're tempted to do? For me, it was retreat from my family. But because you make me enough, Jesus, I can. And for me, that was receive strength and be the mom that I want to be and need to be today. Because I feel like I want to, but because you, Jesus, make me enough, I can. No matter how we're feeling, whatever pit of despair we're in, we can go to Jesus with that prayer. And I'm aware that on Mother's Day, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain because of the way some of us have been treated by our moms or stepmoms, because of some of the ways that we would love to be moms maybe and aren't, because of broken relationships, broken hopes, broken dreams. You might need to pray that prayer or a similar prayer and really cling to it to know that Jesus has made you enough, and you can go to Jesus at any time when you're feeling like you're not enough. I think especially for us as women, we struggle with this idea of being enough. I'm reading Jen Hatmaker's new book, and she talks about how there are different types of women, and I'm just going to profile 2 of them. There are women who are mega women, who are really powerful and really larger than life. And sometimes in our culture, when you're that kind of a woman, you're actually told, no, you're too big. You're too much. We can't quite handle you. That's a mega woman. On the other extreme are women that she calls modest women. Those are women who are maybe smaller, I don't mean in size, I mean in kind of personality and impact and in space that they take up. Those are women who are maybe smaller. Maybe they've been told, you know what, you're too meek, you're too gentle. We need you to be bigger. I tell them, girls, I want you to be the size that God's made you to be. I don't mean physically. I mean emotionally, your presence, your leadership. I want you to be the size God's made you to be. Not too big, not too small. And I've seen in young women that sometimes when they get insecure, they get bigger maybe than God's made them to be. And other times when we get insecure, we get smaller maybe than God's made us to be. I want us to be the size that God's made us to be, and have nobody judge us or tell us we're too big or too small. Whether we're a mega woman or a modest woman, or probably like most of us, somewhere in between. God often reminds us that we're enough through community. If you're struggling with feeling like you are enough and like you have enough, I'd encourage you to check out the wonderful life groups that this church offers. You can find out more on the website or on the app. But there might be somebody that you need to talk to about how you're not feeling like enough or like you don't have enough. What's the third point I want us to think about when it comes to enough? It's this, that Jesus' generosity flows from young people and spreads to all generations. Now, I love young people. If you're younger than 30, then I just think it's awesome that we're in this together. I just want to talk to you. Like anybody got under 30, my husband laughs. Anybody under 30, like I tend to want to go talk to. In this passage, Jesus' generosity flows from a young person and spreads to all generations. Now, what's interesting is unlike other gospels, John actually doesn't have very many children in it. There's no baby Jesus. There's no Jesus at age 12. There's no, Jesus talking and then brings children in the middle of the crowd like in other gospels. This is the only description of a young person. And think about how Jesus could have provided enough. Think about how Jesus could have provided all the meal, all the food that those people needed. He could have turned rocks into rolls. He could have pulled an Avengers trick. Because I have teenagers, I've seen a lot of Marvel movies. And let me just say, he could have pulled, like Thanos. In Avengers, he could have snapped his fingers. And somehow, something powerful could have happened. And all that food could have been happened. But no, he works through a young person. And let me just say, if you're under 30, then Jesus wants to work through you to help others know that they have enough, that Jesus is enough, that they are enough. That was true in the first century, and that's true now. And let me just say, in the midst of this pandemic era, those of us over 30, I'm a little over 30, those of us over 30, we have moved into the territory of our young people. We have moved into their online world. And young people, we need you to lead. We need you to have the compass and prayerfully sense God's way forward for the church, and let those of us who are a little bit older than 30 learn with you and learn from you. I love the way that God is working through courageous young people who God is using to show others that Jesus is enough. Here's the fourth point. Jesus uses all of us. I focused on young people in that last point, but the reality is Jesus uses all of us to let others know that they are not enough. Jesus uses all of us. If you're watching this today, if you're human, you're made in the image of God, which means God can work in you and through you to let others know that they are enough. Here's how I like to think of this. I like to think of it as two circles. There's the circle of there's a circle of our resources, the things that we have, the time, the energy, maybe the finances, the clothes, the car, whatever, the food, whatever it might be, our resources. And then there's others' needs. As we think about our community, as we think about other people in the Fellowship Church family and Monrovia and Pasadena, this whole San Gabriel Valley, there are others' needs. The goal is to figure out the intersection between your resources and others' needs. That's the sweet spot. That's the sweet spot where Jesus can really use us to help other people know that he is enough. So what is it that you have? What's the resource that you have that God might be able to use to help others know that they're enough? For our family, right now, it's our time. We actually have more free time than we normally do, and especially our teenagers. So we've decided that every Thursday afternoon, we're going to volunteer in STARS, this fantastic ministry that serves vulnerable children and families, often during the school year when school is in-person session. That's through tutoring and mentoring. Our two oldest teenagers have been involved in that every week, tutoring elementary age kids. Now that school's online, we've gotten involved instead in food distribution that STARS does every week. So every Thursday we show up. Honestly, a lot of the times I sweep and I mop. I think I've actually swept and mopped at STARS. Actually, I know this is true. I have swept and mopped at STARS more than I have swept and mopped at my own house. This past Thursday, my son and my husband installed a new air conditioning filter for STARS. So every week it's a little bit different, but every week we're taking this resource that we have of our need and offering it. This resource that we have of our time and offering it to help others who have needs. So as we wrap up, I just want to think with you. What area is it? Where is it that you feel like you are not enough? It might be related to Mother's Day. It might have nothing to do with Mother's Day. But what area is it that you feel like you are not enough? How might God want to use you and the resources that you have to meet others' needs so that they can know that Jesus is enough? These days with the pandemic, I can't watch the news very much. It's heartbreaking. It's depressing. I watch about 10 minutes a day. I read just a few articles a day to stay informed, but I just grieve so much by what's on the news. And these days, I'll be honest, often churches are not looking very good. We're looking rebellious, we're looking insensitive, we're looking non-empathetic. Those are the stories that we often hear about particular churches, particular pastors around our country. I have a different vision though. I think we in the church, we are, and we can be, and we should be known as heroes. as people who are so committed to taking our resources to meet others' needs so that they know that they are enough and that Jesus has made them enough. Church, this is an exciting time. Let's be honest about our struggles. Let's experience Jesus' bounty in the midst of those struggles, and let's be used by God because Jesus is enough. Thanks.
Wow, what an incredible service. I'm so glad you were here with us. I'm so glad I was here. I needed that reminder. There are so many ways I feel like I'm not enough, and to be reminded that we have a God that is always more than enough and that meets us in that, so good. And also the invitation for us to be heroes in this season. Yeah, what does it look like for us to be the church, to be everything God designed us to be the hope and the healing that this world needs? What a great challenge. I'm so grateful for that. We want you to know that as you're with us right now, we have pastors and some of the fellowship team that really would love to hear from you right now. There's a number on the screen or a number that goes in the chat. And if there are ways that we can be praying for you, that we can be talking with you, encouraging you, whatever you need in this season, we're here. So right now, we'd love for you to connect with us, and that is an easy way for you to do that. When we gather, we often ask, who are you doing life with and where are you serving? And one of the ways you can do that is through our life groups. That is a great place for you to find community. Even in this season, you can find community on Zoom, on Google Hangout, all kinds of places. So we'd encourage you to join a life group. And we know those life groups aren't just about the time together, but it's also about pushing one another to live out the gospel and to be the heroes in this season. We also know that as this season continues to go on, the impact of COVID on all of us is increasing, and there are more and more of us that need help. And we want you to know as a church, we're here for that. And so if there is a need that you have as a church, we want to help come alongside you however we can. Or if there's someone you know that might have a hard time asking for that help, why don't you encourage them or offer it to them? We want to be the church and come alongside you. We've said from the beginning of time that you don't give to fellowship, you give through fellowship, and it is no different now. As you give through fellowship right now, we are making an impact, not just here in our area in the San Gabriel Valley, but across the country and beyond. And so thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for all the ways that you continue to support the ministries of fellowship. We're so glad we can be with you in this season to make an impact. And lastly, we just want you to know that we're with you all week long. So on every weekday morning at 8 a.m., you can join us for the Good News Today. Midweek, there is a service on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. There is youth group on Tuesday nights. There is kids church on demand. There's life groups all week long. We want you to know we really are scattered together and we're with you in this. So join us. Make sure you don't miss out what's going on because there are other things still happening as well. So be sure to check online or to check on the app and just keep up with what's going on. We are with you and we're so glad to be with you. And so let me just leave you with this. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May you be encouraged. May you be challenged. May you be uplifted. And may you know that he goes with you every step of the way. We love you, fellowship, and we'll see you very soon.